Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, package is just starting to get into really refining our settings. In terms of our stage group, most of the settings and requirements tend to come from the third party. So NPM has rules that it needs to follow, and we just kind of have to adapt them. We've now kind of hit the maturity where we're starting to create custom experiences and things like that. So we're going to start having more settings that impact organizations in different ways. And it's been a little bit of a struggle because it's difficult to find like a consistent pattern, and the placement of settings doesn't seem to align with navigation, nor does it seem to align with documentation. And so we've already heard from our users, we have one thing of settings, and they were like, we have no idea where it is. And once you say, oh, it's in CI/CD under the package thing, they're like, oh, okay, but that's not natural, considering that package isn't normally under CI/CD anyway. So it's really exciting that we're starting this kind of investigation right as package is ready to start doing some more complicated settings.
Mm-hmm. And then when you say looking at this investigation, it's really research. What is it exactly? It's like usability or problem validation?
So most of the time we just kind of hear it as unofficial. We've been chatting with customers and it pops up. When we did problem validation around the cleanup policies that we're redoing, we heard a couple of times that users were struggling to know where that setting would be. Mm-hmm. And that tends to bubble up to settings in GitLab are hard.
Yeah.
So even if it's not just about whatever we were talking about during or solution validation, that kind of came up as a theme of just, it's hard to know where settings are actually going to be.
Mm-hmm. All right. And I saw here the list that you added, that you have a couple of upcoming items that are already scheduled, right?
Yes.
So can you quickly just maybe share what's going to happen in the upcoming milestones?
Yes. So the first thing we're going to do is the first round of the cleanup tag setting UI was confusing. It was very technical and didn't quite line up with what users thought it would. So we are redoing the design of just that section to make it more human, more approachable, mm-hmm. as well as start looking into new features of preview the results of this setting and how the group level and project level are different for these sets of settings. So that's like the next step. We also have with the dependency proxy, which is something that we are doing solution validation on now and will start building soon, has its own settings that it will need in terms of, yes, it caches things or it doesn't cache things, it allows everything, it does not, some stuff like that. We're also going to add cleanup policies for packages, which matches the tag stuff, as well as each package manager will have a couple of new settings. Mm-hmm. Like, do we allow Maven to have uploads of duplicate packages? And the same for NPM and stuff like that. So those are the things that we know are going to be coming up. And then after that, a ways down the road, we know we're going to have some caching settings relating to the dependency proxy for the kind of free tier. If we're going to include just simple request forwarding, where the admin can say, yes, our team can automatically request stuff from the public domains. So npmjs.org, for example, if we can't find it in GitLab, we'll go check there. And then limiting the file size or the file types and making that adaptable at the group level and at the project level. Those are all of the many settings that we're going to be probably tackling in the next 6 months.
Yeah, we'll be quite busy, and so I think it's great that we're having the chance to catch up.
It was true. This is the perfect time for us to try to have this conversation, for package at least.
No, that's actually one of the things that Nadia and I discussed a couple of times, that regardless of what direction we take with settings, I think it's important that someone starts with it, right? If let's say that's package now, for example, when we talk about settings at the group level or separating some package options from CI/CD, as long as we, that's my opinion, as long as we start influencing, right, the overall behavior, the overall interaction with settings across the product, I think it's great that we start some way, somehow. And then when you mentioned the group versus project level at settings, that was for tags, right? Or it's like in general? for package?
That is in general for package. What I've noticed is that our settings tend to be, for the group level, they are setting what the default will be for each project inside of the group. And when I looked at the group level for other stages, it seemed like groups have specific settings and then individual projects have different ones. And so standardization on how we think about that would also be helpful.
Yeah, because
we don't have a group level registry or a group level container registry, so that doesn't apply directly for package. But I would imagine you were kind of exploring, I think, group level releases. So I'd imagine they would have specific settings that wouldn't just default down to projects.
Yeah, and that was my main question, like, because you're also looking at the group settings for releases, right? We want to not only releases, but like environments, deployments. We want to show all these things at the group level. So I think it's interesting to see how how to set up all these functionalities, like the release in relation to the package. Because I think that's definitely a pain point right now, is that you go to CI/CD settings and everything is there, right? So it's a bit problematic at the project level. And when we do that right now, if I don't look at anything else, when I look at the group, we start including new settings, functionalities, or whatever there. It's just so, I don't know, it's just not natural. The workflows, you know, in the group level for where to find things, and yeah, how even how we link some functionalities in the setting. So I'd love to be part of these conversations, because I think it's gonna happen first for package. Definitely, I'm looking at your timelines here.
And that's one of the things, is we don't have a lot of settings right now, but once we start getting more settings directly for package, we have an issue devoted to moving it out of CI/CD and into its own like high level setting, just so it matches the navigation and the documentation. And that's what our users have kind of said they wanted. And I'm just not sure on the broader scale if that's also how we should think about architecting the settings, is to match how they're organized in the navigation itself. Because for package, it makes sense, but I don't know if that's true, say for releases or anyone else, where they're a little more interconnected.
Yeah, I also don't know, because also the research that we have, I think was conducted a year ago. Nadia, do you remember? Like a year, 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, approximately a year, I think, ago.
Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure how, I don't know, how much the product changed. Because there is a lot of requests, like from users, a lot of insights on splitting, how do you call it? How do they call it? It's like the per menu section, like they want to have in context. A lot of users say that they want to have settings in context with the section in the menu, but I'm not 100% confident in on that, given like that. Sorry, brain farty. Like the workflows are so they overlap so much, and not knowing the flow from, let's say, the CI/CD flow for persona A, B, and C, it's very difficult, yeah, to make a decision in that sense. Anyways, that's one of the question marks still that I see.
I also feel like we have to address the fact that the flow for a developer will mostly be away from settings and in the actual content. And so if you're an admin and you're spending most of your time in settings, should we mirror the flow of developers and the settings navigation, or should it be, would you imagine it being different as an admin, where it's just like, I'm thinking of CI/CD as a whole and it has to deliver packages. And so those settings should be together.
Yeah.
And I just don't have the answer to that one either.
And looking at what we have in this epic, of course, I'm not sure if I linked, I think I linked, right? The redesign issue that, I don't know, I think you pinged me a couple of days ago. I just want also to highlight that our first step was to, of course, we have the big problems, but then the proposal of this effort is to look at these big questions and put them in a bucket so that we can discuss as, I don't know, UX department. But also we have feature proposals and also bugs that relate to settings. And what we call bugs are UX depth, UI polish, UI text, just, you know, beautification, let's say. And yeah, the purpose is really to identify what are the low-hanging fruits, like things that we can improve in the settings right now that don't necessarily need UX, a lot of UX involvement. And I just want to highlight is actually this epic here. I'm gonna add to the chat. This epic where, yeah, there's 43 issues related to design. And one of the things that we wanted to suggest, and that's of course we have to discuss with PMs as well, was to see when the groups can pick up these issues. So for example, release management, I'm looking to the settings, the issues, the bugs that involve settings that are in environments, for example, buttons that are misaligned, whatever, a title that is missing in a page, things like that, so that we can fix existing problems while we look at the bigger
It looks
discussion.
like, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. That's pretty much it. And
As
maybe
a quick
Nadia,
scan.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I don't want to interrupt you.
That's okay.
Looking through the issues, it kind of seems like one of the bigger initiatives that we could take as the low-hanging fruit is some standardization issues. Like get all the buttons on the same side, get all the tables to be aligned, and then some consistency issues. I'm wondering if that is something that maybe we can work with the foundations team and say, we have this issue, can we partner with you to come up with these standard settings UI and how the form should look in this field and stuff like that. And then if some of those issues will fall into that, and it's more natural to be like, okay, the foundation team came out with a new standard and that impacts package settings. Here's what we should change, and that we can use that to kick off the how to improve the settings flow. Does that resonate at all?
Definitely, I love that. And it's really in line with, I think, what Maria started doing in Configure. She has an epic that it's really about buttons. I'm gonna add here to the chat and also to the document, where she just created a lot of these issues, organized at least the issues, to fix buttons in settings. And that's it. It's like move button from here to there, align to the right, align to the left. So if you look at this epic, I think it's a bit in line with what you're saying. So we choose a topic, buttons in settings, to fix that. It sounds very small when you look at the overall, like the overarching goal, right, for settings, which is to improve the overall user experience. But there are issues in settings that are so small, they're like UX enhancements, they are there for 2, 3, 4 years. And my gut feeling is that let's try to, close those bugs so that we can look at the user experience goals on the fly, like as we go, with the help of other designers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay. Nadia, anything you want to add?
You've been far too quiet so far.
I just talked so much today that my talking is like done. But no, like it's interesting. Like I'm a bit surprised positively, and also like surprised with the amount of issues that you placed, Ian, from the package perspective around the settings, right? And like the thought that I'm having, it's like probably every stage group will have those, and we really need to. If talking about the actual settings redesign, so not about the bugs or not about little improvements, but if we would want to do an impact on the user experience, and tackle some of those feedbacks that we've been hearing that it's hard to find things, or why settings are separate from that the features itself. We need to look from a really wide lens here, and I'm just I started thinking about how to find the strategy, how to deal with that. But of course, like Kayana, we will need to schedule such conversations with other stage groups as well, like with Maria, with everybody else, to understand the space we are working here with. But no, it was just it's a lot of information. It's useful, but I'm like immediately thinking like, okay, what can we do here?
Yeah, that's totally right. I think when we talk about the personas and all these different user flows, it's difficult to make a decision based on the experience of a release management manager. I don't know, that needs to go and manage his packages, right? It's very specific. I love to continue this conversation and hear more from others as well, because maybe someone is already doing this type of investigation, and it's just not seeing the light just yet. And another thing that I think we discussed this as well, Nadia, is that as we go, I would like to explore the working group approach, similar to what some people did in the past, maybe like what the GitLab UI working group did, so that we can have I don't know, designers, ambassadors, or whatever, product managers that can spend their time looking at this continuously, because these problems, they all exist, as you're saying. Like Ian, I also wasn't expecting Ian to put so many issues here.
You happened to catch me right when we were talking about all the new settings that we could do. It was really perfect timing.
Yeah. And then if you can, just keep the conversation rolling, it will be awesome. Because it will be a time at least that I have to work on group settings, and I would love to work on top of what you already have, Ian, rather than start the whole brainstorming. It makes sense. So
Is there a way, since already as soon as the next milestone, I'm going to be working on the settings, that we can utilize the fact that I'm about to do that design work anyway to work on resolving or setting standards for resolving some of our UX issues? So like if we move the package settings into its own page, do we have an opportunity to say like, this is how a settings page should work, and explore that? Do you think there's an opportunity there to use that to kick off so like Create, who has been here forever and their settings are very complicated, to like, package is very straightforward, here's the patterns, and then work from there? Do you think there's an opportunity for that?
I think so. I personally think so, especially that we can do validation and we can compare both versions, right? We can do usability testing and say, here's what works for the new settings page, and here's what's working, what's not working for the current configure CI/CD settings, whatever, and then build our case on top of that. Because I think as we go, we're going to start finding the similarities in what you just said. The user needs, right? You're working on settings and something, and then people are complaining about that discoverability of settings, even the documentation. I think that's a good direction, because we need to start somehow. And one of the problems I've seen in the past is that we can plan as much as we want, we can do as many designs as we want, but we need to deliver software. So if we have that implemented, and then we can say, here it works or it doesn't, it's much better than building the design plan and polishing it.
I wonder if there's a way that I could partner with Nico, who's our front end person, and say, one of the things we want to do with all these package settings is set standards. And an easy way to permeate that is if you create the components in such a way that they're so easy to use, that it's so inexpensive to change in the development lifecycle. And I wonder if there's an opportunity we could explore there. Where it's just like, if we have a title and a section to documentation and the header, I'm not quite sure the details of it, but actually say, if we use this pattern, it's pretty much built for you. You just need your front end developer. It's a front end weight of like 1, and you could just build it and you would be done and you would look really good on your stage group. I wonder if that is another area we could explore. Not only do we as a designer say these are the new patterns, but also the front end is already plug and play. It's super easy, just do it. I wonder if, because that's usually the feedback I get, is that I want to do this new design. It's just the amount of time for the developers to do it is more than I can prioritize right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can make it so easy that it's a one, maybe we can accelerate the process.
Yeah, and then we could, if it's the case, we could definitely think of, I don't know, you do something, you do the first step in 13.3 and then release management does in 13.4 or 5. You know, if we think of componentizing this structure, then like what you say, it's already part of the plan, the building blocks. And it's something that we can sell to product managers, to engineering managers.
I
But
don't,
yeah, go ahead.
yes, I am so happy we're in alignment there. I also wonder if I can push for solution validation a little heavier, and then we can share some of the broader terms. For example, we've already shown the revised cleanup policies, and our users gave us feedback that we use much more human terminology and much more closer to sentences and less titles. And the way that we did that, they resonated with really well. The fact that it was more conversational and human as opposed to technical. So I wonder if there's insights like that we can also surface when we're trying to come up with these patterns of like, users really liked it when we explicitly said, here's a whole sentence of what this setting is going to do, and they liked it.
Yeah.
Instead of like, check this box, it does a thing, and if you know all the buzzwords, you're good. But if you don't know the terminology, it is a mystery button.
That's the GitLab problem. Right? You open the box, like you either know what's in the box or you don't know, and then you have to Google figure out yourself. Yeah, I also had, especially when I was doing the how's the name, detached pipeline research, and also when we were doing some solution validation. There, I think, was 50-50. Some participants, they really loved having a lot of context, a lot of copy, a lot of information in the UI, and other people are like, I just know what this is about. It feels like the application is telling me I'm stupid. Why do I have to read this? So I think we need to find the middle ground, you know, in that sense. And also, like another point I added here to the agenda is that guidelines in pajamas, right? We have guidelines for components and positioning of this and that. So if you want to talk about standardizing the experience, I think we should start documenting or start having a conversation about what is settings within GitLab so that other designers can build something that is part of the family, it's part of the out-of-the-box experience.
Does pajamas afford itself to be at the higher levels? It does a really good job of documenting components, individual components, like this is the rules for using a toggle. Is it already set up and I'm just not noticing it? To say like in a setting situation, here's how you should architect the page in an ideal scenario. So it's the same as every other settings that we've done so far.
Yeah.
Or is that our vision and dream of the next time? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we do have regions. So empty state, navigation, search, things that are really high level. I don't think settings that high level experience, like my first thought, right? To me, it feels like settings, it's a section within the project, with the product. It's like almost like a capability built in. I don't know how to explain that. We do have what we call regions. And then, oh, there's objects. This is new. But I think we can definitely investigate that because it needs to be documented somewhere. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's actually a good idea. You know, kind of like as we define those best practices, it's good to document those. I don't think we have much around those today, but yeah, it's kind of like that next maturity level, I guess, to which we have to go to.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say that it's probably like whenever, Ian, if you are going to be the first person to touch this, it would be good to have an example, not an example, but I have a little bit of an investigation. I'm curious, like, and I will definitely have a look into it, but I'm curious, like, what are some of the other super complicated, like big products that have nice, well, information architecture of settings or like nice usability of settings, like, you know, like to understand where do we even want to go with this, like, because it is complex. We have so much today, so much features to cover and so much personas and stage groups.
I do wonder, just along that exact thought, if similar to what Hayana was saying earlier, was that if we should have a like developer level settings that's in the UI next to what you're working on. So if you were looking at the package registry, it would have a settings button. And then there's the like the group DevOps admin level settings, which a developer would never touch. And they're different, and we should start separating them out and make
Different
them feel a little bit more different.
Yeah. We also
That would be interesting to
have you seen that approach in some of the other like applications, or like curious where did you get that thought from?
I wish I had a great example that I could just like pop up and be like, this is how they did it expertly. But I'm thinking from the standpoint of, we experienced this a little bit at the group level versus the project level for package, where each package registry has its own settings, and they should be right there because you're looking at the data. And so you should click on a button and edit that data right there. And then there's other things that's like at the super high level of, this project should never have a package registry ever. So that shouldn't be in this, they can be separated so that we have our DevOps persona and our system admin persona who has a really small set of things that they have to manage. And then the actual people working with and dealing with what we're displaying, whether it's issues or whether it's a package registry, have settings that they can manipulate at that level.
So it's more like a contextual access to settings based on your workflow, but also, I don't know, your personas, your access or whatever. So you could potentially, if I understand correctly, you could potentially just, I'm here working on packages. I don't need to go to the group level settings. I have access to this right now because this is my job. But if it's not part of my workflow, I don't really see that in the face.
A practical example would be, we have the cleanup policy for the container registry. And so if you're looking at the container registry and you want to turn it on and say, I want to delete all of our old stuff, it's right there. But then there's other level settings that are, this container registry does not accept this file type. Like that's not something you would want to look at the data and see how they relate. And so the admin has a different set of questions compared to the people actually working with what's there. I'm exploring. I don't know if this is actually true, but it would be curious if there's contextual settings right there, and then an admin, or more so the group admin, kind of has their own area to deal with that only is specific to their workflows.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that if it's something that you can explore, it's definitely, well, not definitely, I shouldn't use this word, but it sounds like something that we could, explore as well in release. Because when we talk about all these personas, all these the different people that are consuming, managing releases, and then everyone is forced to go to one place, even though it's not part of your your flow. It would be nice to gather insights in that specific.
I have some solution validation around that cleanup policy for tags. Let me add a couple of questions, because I think we're going to be talking to system admins and developers, and I will ask them a nicely formulated question around the same area of, would you expect these settings to be here, or would you split them into two different areas? What resonates with how your organization works?
Yeah, and I think that will resonate with what we want to do for secrets and CI variables, for example. We want to split the settings, and also they're going to happen, they're going to live at the group level someday, this year probably still. But if maybe we can link these insights if the personas are the same, like if you have software developer and
But I love this. It's great. Like whenever I like where we are going with that, because if you're going to be talking to each of the different stage groups who are planning to do any research around those things, we can ask to add a couple of questions and kind of like do the research around, the placement of settings or usage of those to the studies that are planned, so we could get some additional information. So that's really helpful.
So beautiful. Yeah. Awesome. So
if all else fails, research the question. That's the designer mantra.
We have a lot of next steps, and that's awesome. But I think maybe we can regroup in a couple of, we can always catch up asynchronously. But what I want to do is that to catch up with other designers. There are also thinking and working with settings. So maybe Maria will be a next good option, Nadia. And then Ian, of course, you're invited to join so that we can have the same brainstorming. And then we can discover how to cross-link this initiative.
We can put these sessions maybe on the UX calendar so it's visible for others or whoever wants to join.
I like that.
Yeah.
Something that the growth team did that I thought was really useful is that they looked at every stage group and had kind of like a mini workshop. I wonder if that's the avenue to take when it comes to these settings, so that you're asking everyone in planning or in create to like, how does this impact you? And ask everyone in operations, how does this impact?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a good way to facilitate the conversation so there's not a lot of synchronous meetings, but also we get a lot of data.
Yeah.
I say that knowing that I don't have to do it, so it's really easy to like dish out network to people.
Yeah, but I think that's a good idea. I think this is what Hayani, this is what you wanted to do initially, right?
That's exactly what I want to do. So do kind of a one-on-one, because when we get these calls with the 10 DRIs, then the conversation doesn't really have a focus, because now we can really talk about package, right? And then if we go over, I don't know how many groups or teams we have, but if you can explore, I don't know, the teams from 5 other stage groups, and then we collect the data and say, here's what we discovered, and then now let's continue the conversation as a group. My opinion is that that's more productive than having one big call. But I like the idea of having the UX calendar, because we can also, just reinforce the existence of this initiative, but also, make people want to be more involved if they have something to talk about.
Just for clearance and alignment here, are you going to be setting up the next session? Any help?
I'm going to put
Awesome. Cool. Yeah.
the next with configure. It's nice because it overlaps anyways. So it's awesome. Cool. Anything else we didn't cover today? Anything that we can improve maybe for next time? We did great. We're great. We're amazing. Awesome. Cool. I'm gonna stop the recording.